Just a couple of quick reminders, please. If you're not presenting or asking a question, keep yourself muted in Teams. And the topics today and our speakers, Tony Kitsos from UVM Extension Dairy Business Program is going to, Farm and Forest Viability Program, is going to get us kicked off with an overview of the dairy situation in Vermont, past, present, and future. And then we are really glad to be joined by Steve Wadsworth and Audrey King, both involved with the CREAM program in CALS. And they're going to be talking about that program, and you'll learn what that acronym stands for as a result of that conversation. For those who are new to Cells to Society seminars or just want a quick recap, this is really sort of a grassroots effort to try to improve communication and sharing across the college and across the university related to all the work we do, whether it be research, education, or extension. We have had a small but mighty organizing team. Myself, and I'm very grateful to be joined by Hans Estrin and Andrew May. Andrew has joined us to help with organizing these recently, and is very grateful to have him with us. Chris Kaliba has backed off of this effort in particular, but was very instrumental in helping us get started and for where we are. And Allison Neihart, as you may or may not know, is no longer with UVM, but was instrumental in helping us really improve our approach to organizing for these seminars, and I'm grateful to her efforts in that regard. We love to get new ideas for themes and even speakers. If you want to talk on a specific topic, you can go to go.uvm.edu/cells to society ideas. That's a live form that you can use to give us your thoughts on future topics and themes. To that end, this is part of really a two-part approach where we have two back-to-back monthly seminars on themes, each with two topics and typically two speakers. There can be more than one speaker on a topic. And quarterly, we have what we call the CALS out-of-the-box brainstorming sessions. And those are an opportunity to have some really live working time with each other, talking about emerging themes for new projects. So not just talking about what we've done, but talking about what we could and should be doing together. Then the rough schedule for the coming year is here. Today is February 10th, and we're talking dairy. We are still working on a theme for March 10th, but we do have a theme for May 12th, which will be water. And in between those, in April, we'll have our next out-of-the-box brainstorm session. Those are led by Hans Estrin. So if you have ideas for specific topics of this discussion there, be in touch with Hans. Just a reminder, all these seminars are recorded and served up on the CALS Cells to Society YouTube channel, which you can find at the main Cells to Society webpage, which is uvm.edu/extension/CALS/cells-society. Google might be your friend there. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Tony, who should be able to now share his screen.
How are we doing?
Good. Hit F5 and it'll make it a cleaner view. Hopefully.
I'm hitting F5. Come on, boys. Let me try getting out of it and getting back in.
All right.
Yes. We just tried it. It worked great.
Yep. We'll get her.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Timing is everything, is it not? Great. All right, Chris, thank you. And thank you for inviting me here. And I appreciate everybody coming today. I'm Tony Kitsos, Dairy Business Program Specialist here at UVM Extension. Have been in the role here working in agricultural business for about 16 years now, doing farm business planning, farm financial analysis, everything sort of at the farm level. and then integrating those specialties with other staff to work with 2 new grants, the Clean Water Initiative program, where we use our business expertise to help farms analyze infrastructure, large infrastructure projects that they need to do in order to meet the state's required agricultural practices. And the latest grant that we've begun to work with is through the Dairy Business Innovation Center for Dairy Herd Management Technical Assistance, where a farm will call in and then work with our business team to not only assess what the management strategies are that they need to do, but how that financially impacts their bottom line, which I think is somewhat unique with a lot of the consulting. They'll come out there and recommend things, but they don't necessarily tie things back into the cost of production and what to do about things for their future. Today's talk for me will be kind of broken into 2 main components. One is a little bit of historical data that takes us back to the early 90s. I figure 30 years is about all we need to go back to really understand what's been going on. And a little bit about what might be coming down the pipe in the future, and then discuss in a little bit more detail how the programming that I just talked about really addresses what some of those shifting needs are going forward. So dairy data in 1992 is about when I first came into the business as a dairy nutritionist working for a feed company. I used a rough adjuster for inflation of $1 at about $1.98. And in other words, if you spent $1 in 1992, it would be like spending pretty close to $2 today. So we're going to use that sort of model to give sort of a rough assessment about what the price of milk means now and the price of milk meant back then and what happened with inflation. So there's right there. The first one is the average milk price in 1992 is $12.90. And back in the early 90s, milk was controlled by the Minnesota-Wisconsin pricing model, where whatever that was worth out there, that's what basically everybody got paid. And until that got dispensed with, things went today. Currently, I think there are 7 regional pricing areas of the country. Inflation adjusted dollars means that $12.90 back then is the equivalent of what about $25.54 would do on the farm. In reality, we're getting $17.84, so you can see how we lost to inflation there. And for the coming year, for 2022, it looks to be on average about $22.57. Conversation I had in a staff meeting this morning was, yeah, but isn't $22 really good? And well, let's look at it in terms of inflation, and it's not as good as it should be. That's why farmers are having still difficulty trying to make their bottom line meet. Corn and soybeans, the same conversation plays out. $5.97 for beans, $2.39 for corn, and you can see that they're still lagging significantly behind what the value of those products are today. So what's good for the grain industry is not necessarily good for the dairy industry. We've seen the milk price be stressed so much so, and input costs go up so much so that the margin looks like it gets crushed even more. MILC payments, milk income loss, there were none back then. We didn't even have that program, so that as that margin, the difference between what it costs to make it and what you're actually getting for it, there were no makeup checks that came along. 1992, there were 2,500 operating dairy farms within the borders of Vermont with an average number of cows per farm of 70. 2,500 farms. This next slide is going to show just exactly the slide after that, but I'll show you exactly where we are today. In terms of percent of milk produced out of the top 24 states, back then we produced 18% of all the milk produced in the top 24 states. It was a pretty strong showing. Currently, that number is plus or minus 11%, so down significantly. And If we wanted to just look at California as was one of the big growth states that occurred from the 90s to today, back in the 60s, Vermont produced 23% of what California's milk total output was. Today it's only 6%, significantly less. And are we a really important player in the market? And I think my last few slides will show that I really believe that we are. Gross sales, 1992 was $344 million, or inflation adjusted at 681 today. In actuality, total sales in 2020 were $476 million, pretty far behind what that inflation adjusted number really should represent. Average age of an operator back then was plus or minus 53 years, and we were quite nervous about what that number was going to do. And sure enough, the average age of a farmer now is 57 and a half years, and some estimate it as being even a little bit higher than that, maybe closer to 59 years. Depends on who you ask. So why is that important? I think it's important today because when you look at a table like this, and Chris, thanks for blowing those numbers up for me, you can see these are sort of like dairy data, historical dairy data since 2012 over the last 10 years. And if we just continually add inflation to what some of these numbers are, we can see that the price of milk really does go nowhere over the long haul. That is just a very zigzag, flat, moving graph. And we'd love to see that be $20, $21, $22 strong throughout. We're right now producing somewhere is on the order of $210 million a month, million pounds of milk a month, excuse me, which is fairly significant. And what it shows is the average number of amount of milk produced on a farm has gone up significantly. The data that I did find for back then was somewhere is on the order of 15 to 16,000 pound per cow herd averages, and now that's a lot closer to 23,000 pound herd averages. A lot of information on this page, and this one comes out for some dairy updates that we do. Talk a little bit about how some of our programming kind of integrates and really helps farmers understand what all those numbers mean, and to put it together in a plan that kind of goes forward for them. We consider ourselves to be UVM's agricultural business. Of that, we have a variety of different grants that come into AgBiz that we would then, again, as I said before, kind of ply our trade and try to bring those things back out to the farm. These are just a lot of the different kind of groups that we have and sort of the way that we provide our outreach education. First grant that we got came back through since I think 2004 was our first granted year, 04, 05, was from Vermont Housing and Conservation Board's Farm Viability Program at that time. We had 4 service provider organizations in 2004, 2005. We now have 7. Shows you how that particular program has grown. We've touched over 850 unique agricultural businesses with just that one program alone. Several consultants with a variety of expertises ranging from legal, accounting, on-farm pasture management, processing, all specialized to work with farms who want to grow their business in these areas. And we're up now too with UVM specifically. There's over 122 farms served total, and that encompasses a whole lot of information on not only the business plans that we've done, but also with things like cash flow analysis, PPP programs that came out, a lot of the COVID relief money. We were assisting farms understand the numbers behind those things. This just gives you a little bit of an indication of how it worked and when we started, and we were really flying by the seat of our pants. And now we've kind of grown that to something a whole lot different. And again, these are the kind of things that we wind up doing still with just 4 service providers on staff. Diversified out into veg and berry. We do some maple business planning, diversified farming, and of course, value added has been a big one over the last few years. Currently, the several grants that we work with, aside from just the farm viability, you can see that we've brought that up to 6, and we're sure that the list will still grow. And a lot of these grants, we hope that we can renew them on an ongoing basis. Talk a little bit about the Dairy Herd Management Technical Assistance Program. This came in through Dairy Business Innovation Center dollars, where we provide technical assistance back out to dairy farms and help them with just about everything under the barn roof. How is it that you manage your cows? Are your stalls good? Are your water is adequate? Are your nutrition programs, ventilation, et cetera, et cetera? A lot of things we touch upon in business planning, but we aren't really granted to work just in those areas. And now I believe we are. So we're rounding out and enhancing our capabilities to support not only this particular grant, but the other grants that we work with as well. Clean Water Initiative Program is one that we're approaching. We've written in for our 3rd cycle on that. And again, we work with farms who do large infrastructure programs and just try to have farmers understand what they're doing, how much money it is that they're spending, and how they're going to go about paying for those $750,000 manure pits that everybody wants them to put in. We do cash flow and budget analysis and the list of things that we've got here. And ultimately, we wind up talking often about farm transfer and exit planning. It's the one piece that I want to highlight about that right now. Everything that we do always comes back to that one big question. Am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for the next generation, or should I do this at all? And then again, we wind up referring people out of some of these programs, these targeted and specific programs, into that larger planning effort. We accept them on a rolling basis. We've got some processes that we use. We've put together some websites on the extension webpage. And again, here are some of the variety of things that this technical assistance program with the Clean Water Initiative allows us to do and bring to the table for dairy farmers. A few of the projects that we're involved in. On the top left, there's a manure storage pit that went in Colchester. That one approached $1.1 million after everything was said and done, with all the new equipment that had to be purchased to handle from solid to liquid manure. And interesting to try to do that on 80 cows without grant money. It would have never happened. That project was funded about 90% and took significant loan, some significant loan work and bridge funds to get that off the ground and going. Silage leachate, taking care of all the runoff that comes out of bunks and milk house waste. You can see in the bottom left some of the new technologies that are involved in the larger farms and what they need to do to consider what they're doing to control anything coming out of the milk house, and then of course barnyard waste. Seems to get a lot of press and is something that we definitely have had several projects that have helped farms work with. So where do we take it? You know, I think we have some great opportunities to lead the New England states in this type of outreach education. In a meeting I was on just before coming here, I talked to Kelsey and Whitney. They're involved in DBIC about working with some folks that we know at UNH and UMaine, trying to put together some either group tours or webinars and seminars that farms can engage in, where they can learn about all these programs. Other states are struggling with dairy numbers, and I think they struggle with dairy funding as well. And if we have more numbers and a little bit more funding, all we need to do is collaborate, and we can get this region-wide. Network within the department, network within extension, and just try to kind of mimic that model that we have within AgBiz to work together with our programs, that one feeds another and back and forth. And then again, I just think farm planning is so essential that if we're not offering this type of service to farmers, then they really do struggle at where they get the advice. Unfortunately, I don't have the data right now to present. We're reviewing it right now, but Mark Canella and I had done some survey work with medium and large farm operations to understand what they thought their business health was in the context of conservation planning, kind of going along with the CWIP grant that we had. And it was surprising to know that 57% of all the farms that were in those groups had succession planning, that 43% did not. And there are some multi-million-dollar efforts that are sitting out there right now that nobody knows what's going to happen to them. Heaven forbid something actually did happen. So I'd really love to see some efforts put forward there and just continue to collaborate. And that's it. Thanks for having me. I hope it's kind of a 30-year tour that took 25 minutes or whatever that was, but it not that easy. So if anybody's got any quick questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks, Tony. I'm going to suggest we hold on to questions till the end to make sure we give Steve and Audrey their time. But thanks for that tour, and really good to get grounded in the data of the industry. Thank you. With that, I want to transition over to Steve and Audrey, who are going to speak on the CREAM program. Steve, you should be able to share your screen at this point. Perfect. Thank you.
So I'm Steve Wadsworth. I'm a veterinarian, and I'm on the faculty of the Department of Animal and Veterinary Sciences. I'm the advisor to the CREAM program and teach some other courses as well. My past years have been spent as a dairy veterinary practitioner in St. Albans in a 6 veterinarian practice that I helped found back in the 80s. And so I am now in what I guess some people call an encore career. My wife calls it insanity. But I am thoroughly enjoying my tenure at the UVM barn. So the CREAM program was started in the late 1980s. The acronym stands for the Cooperative for Real Education in Agricultural Management. We have a 50-cow milking cow dairy of high genetic and Holstein cows, and roughly another 50 animals of replacement animals, calves and heifers. The students have a little video they made last year, kind of a promotional video.
I'll find the link for that and drop it in the chat box so folks get the audio. Vern, if you're singing, you can unmute.
I sound like spoiled milk.
So the CREAM program is a student-run dairy farm and business. It's very unique in the agricultural education at universities. There's a couple of other CREAM programs around the United States. There's one at University of New Hampshire and one at University of Maine. Here at UVM, we typically have close to 20 or more students involved in the program. It's a 2-semester spring and fall program. Students have to take both semesters. Then there is a summer program that consists of just a 12-week kind of what I call cream light. It's a shorter experience. But we have one of the highest producing herds in Vermont. We sell our milk through Agrimart. Our milk goes to the Cabot Creamery, and it's also processed at a different location, some of our milk for the dairy bar over at the Davis Center. The thing that characterizes CREAM is it's an experiential learning program outside of the classroom, which makes it quite unique. And it is a program that provides relevance to the students' education. So they learn their biochemistry and their nutrition and anatomy and physiology in the classroom, and then they come out here to the farm and actually learn how to apply that in real life situation. The three pillars of the program are academic instruction. We have 2.5 hours a week of classroom time. The second piece is work skill development. This is such a critical piece in today's workforce. There's so many, you can really see it, particularly now in the COVID world, where we just can't find workers that have the right attitude and the right training. And then the last piece is personal and community character development. So similarly, developing the soft skills necessary to succeed at whatever you go into. The majority of the students that are in the program are coming at it from a pre-veterinary program. They're hoping to become veterinarians at some point. Hopefully. This is, yeah, hopefully, says Audrey. This is a partial list of the topics that we generally cover in the course of the 2 semesters. This is not comprehensive, but it gives you kind of a sense of some of the things that we discuss and have instruction on, from milking management to baby calf management, obstetrics during the calving process, reproductive management systems, disease control, vaccination programs, barn biosecurity systems. We talked about the current topics within the dairy industry, which can be depressing, as Tony says. Farm financial management. Actually, Tony has come and given presentations to our class in recent months. Labor management, responsible antibiotic usage, nutrition, colostrum management, transition cow disease control, genetics and breeding decisions. The students make all the mating decisions for the farm. Every cow on the farm is genomic tested. So we use high-end genomic profiling to decide which cow should be bred to which bull. Lameness control management. We register, because the herd is registered, we go through a classification system every 6 months, which is a phenotypic classification of our herd. We show cows in the summer at local fairs. We talk about treatment programs. The students learn how to give IVs and intramuscular injections and oral treatment. We do computer analysis with our herd data, learn how to input and extract information from our computer system. Applied anatomy and physiology, physical exams, and cow handling and cow comfort. There's a whole variety of things that we cover. This ends up being one of the more compelling aspects of the program, that I try to create a spirit of character development in a way that we create an atmosphere within the student group where we treat each other respectfully. We start each semester. I give out similar stones as this one pictured, gratitude stones, to everybody, trying to create an atmosphere of mutual respect and a cooperative environment that we can work together. So we work together in committee structures. And so this is a really critical part of the program, in my opinion. The work skills, from my experience from decades working on farms, boils down to just this triad of characteristics where you show up on time, you bring a good attitude every day, and you stay until the work is finished. And to my amazement, that's sometimes a new message for young college students. What do the Creamers do? They have a couple hours of classroom time. We have 4 hours a week of meeting time, which is committee meetings and kind of group decision making. They also are responsible for 4 milkings a day. We milk part of the herd twice a day and part of the herd 3 times a day. They feed the calves, they feed the cows, they keep the place clean, they get to name and take care of calves. We had two babies born a couple of days ago, which was the first calves born to this current semester cream group. So that was a big deal for them. When we do have calvings, the students take care of everything from the delivery to taking care of the newborn baby and taking care of the mom. And here's our showing the students doing chores. We have a beautiful facility here. If you haven't been to the farm, we would welcome you to visit. And I think I'm going to turn it over. We go through, there's a bunch of slides here on our committees, which we have 2 basic committees. And I think at that point, I'm going to skip this and give it to Audrey and enable her to talk about what it is like to be a cream student. And she just started about a month ago or so, at the beginning of this semester. So maybe tell a little bit about your background and how you got here. And yeah,
I'll take it away.
Take it from here.
Nice to meet you. I'm Audrey King, and I'm currently a senior animal science major at the University of Vermont, and I am in my first semester of cream. So this is my first semester, and I'll be doing the fall next year. As Dr. Wadsworth mentioned, it's been about a month being in the program, and it's definitely been a bit of an adjustment. Working at the barn, I feel like, is something that not any of us in the program anticipated, or like some of the aspects of it at the very least. But it is really an amazing and unique experience that I would probably have a hard time saying others could find elsewhere. So it's really amazing to not only have like the responsibility of taking care of live animals that are also essential to the school, but to also gain our own experience. For example, I know the majority of the people in my program with me on the team currently are pre-vet majors or are hoping to go to vet school, and that is the case for myself as well. And being a pre-vet student, it is so amazing to be able to have the opportunity to come here and work hands-on with animals and get kind of a unique view into veterinary medicine as well as like bovine medicine, which it's crazy that I get to work with big animals like that and also like have responsibility over their vet care. Being a part of the CREAM program, one of the big things that Dr. Wadsworth stresses every like Monday and Thursday meetings is, I guess, like the soft skills that he talked about. And the biggest things that I've noticed in the past month are that while they were things he might have just talked about in meeting, they are like manifesting in our team, where we like hold each other responsible for not only running the farm, but also being compassionate and caring towards each other to understand each other's positions. And also, because we are in this together, all of us know that this is not easy. Can you stop sharing the screen? Is that better? Okay. And so it is really nice to get to meet creamers of all, like across all 4 years that you get to work with consistently over a long period of time, where you build relationships and you support each other both like academically and like emotionally. And so that's really nice. Personally, for me, one of the biggest things, because I do hope to go to vet school after graduation, is working. I work at a hospital outside of school, so working with smaller animals. The biggest thing about being in the CREAM program is working with bigger animals. It gives you a better understanding of anatomy and physiology and how it like manifests itself physically, rather than just like learning about it through small animals, because everything, as you know, with cows is bigger and you get to see it more clearly. So I know that is definitely one of my favorite parts and where I learned the most. And one of the big unique things about the CREAM program, as well as all the people who run it, such as Dr. Wadsworth and our herdsman and all of the other advisors that we have, is that the barn is an open environment for us to come. It's a place where we can come to learn whenever we want to. The barn is open. Even if we don't have classes or meetings here, we're allowed to be here to take care of the calves and like to take care of the herd. So it's been really amazing for the month that I've been in it so far.
And you're just beginning.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I love it. If you guys haven't had a chance to come see it, I would recommend it. And any questions?
Great. Audrey, thanks so much for sharing your experiences with us. And Steve, thanks for the overview of CREAM. There are a ton of questions in the chat box. If we all want to go there, let's start at the top. I think the first question was from Vern. Do we know, this was for Tony, do we know to what extent New England and/or the Northeast is self-sufficient in dairy? In other words, are lower cost Western products taking over the market over time?
It's a good question, Vern. I think if I were to put there's one word, one sentence adage is we don't drink all the milk we produce. There's no way. I mean, most of all the milk that we produce here goes to Boston and it heads out down the road. It's turned back into hood milk and it comes back to our grocery stores or whatever DFA wants to do with it. And Agrimark basically does the same thing. It kind of leaves, or whatever stays at Cabot gets turned into Cabot cheese. But I think there's one other way to sort of point that out in that, we just came through a period where there were 27 farms, there were organic farms that basically were told that they weren't going to have their milk picked up anymore because, and to me, that's as big a value added market as there is. Here we are in Vermont hearing that 27 farms have got to go because we just can't pick that milk up. And I was reading an article yesterday that in Lubbock, Texas, Leprino is building a brand new facility, $1 billion, making 1 million pounds of mozzarella cheese every day. So think about that. Put that into perspective a little bit and find out where the marketplace wants their milk to come from. And yes, we're kind of moving towards value-added product and a value-added state, if you will, but there really has to be use for that market. I mean, when I look at what some of the value-added cheese producers are doing right now, they're not selling it here in Vermont. It's out in New York City. You can find it down on the Cape, in Florida, Harry and David catalog, so on and so forth. They're finding other markets for that high-value cheese. So a little bit difficult.
And David Connor had a question as well, prompted by your talk, Tony. He's heard that in other states, co-ops are buying less and farmers are focusing management goals less on yield and more on components. Do you see that happening here in Vermont too? And can you help some of us understand the difference between yield and components?
So yield would be making 80 pounds a cow. Selling your milk on value and components means I make 7.5 pounds of solids in that 80 pounds a cow that can go down the road and be turned into value-added products. And when I mentioned the M&W price, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and now that we're pricing milk just a little bit differently, it does go back into the components. The class, and I don't want to butcher this too bad, but I mean, class 1, 2, 3, and 4 is drink it, spread it, freeze it, and powder it, right? And more and more and more are all those other classes highly valuable and highly important in how they move around the country and how milk gets priced. So when farmers are breeding their cows, they really are looking for high protein and high butterfat percentage producers so that they can get those pounds. The marketplace has really got to pick up on paying the value that it's worth, though. That's where I see the shortfall.
Thanks, Tony. One more for you, and then we have one for Audrey and Steve. So John Barlow has a question somewhat related to Vern's. Value added has become important, which likely helps explain the increase in number of processors in Vermont. Bottom line of table early in presentation. How has the increase in number of processors influenced fluid milk use in the state? How much milk is going to value added versus processed regionally, for example, Springfield, Massachusetts? and heads to fluid market out of state. And John adds, yes, of course, my question also relates to David's, as components are so important to the value added market.
Yeah, lots of twists and turns, John. I hope I can get it for you. So I think it would be great if all the new fluid milk that small processors were making here in Vermont constituted a brand new milk drinking customer. I'm not really sure it does. I think there's a bit of a division from all of us who drink milk. Some will now have that as a choice, and fewer will drink sort of the straight up grab a handle at the supermarket. It's those of us who drink milk isn't necessarily growing. Those of us who want high value cheese, if there is growth there, I don't know that it's significant enough to really move and shake the number that needs to be moved. It's good, and if a farm has the financial structure to convert to it, I think it's a great idea.
Thanks, Tony. For Audrey and Steve, Hans Estrin has a question. He was really impressed and inspired that you actually have a soft skills program as part of the CREAM focus. How and why did that come to be?
I have been working on dairy farms as a veterinarian for 40 plus years, and I am married to a woman who has taught vocational agriculture for the same amount of time. And so in both our experiences, we see on a almost daily basis the critical need there is in our workforce for these skills. And I think it's such an important piece that also I've hired a lot of veterinarians in our practice, and I've fired a fair number too. And the firing was not because they weren't clinically competent. It was that they didn't have the relationship piece with farmers, that they were either not trustworthy or dishonest or had issues with integrity. That really makes or breaks a successful anybody, whether you're a veterinarian or whatever career you go into. Those, the technical skills you can train, but you cannot train attitude. And so I spend a lot of time cultivating that to show these young students that that's a vital part of their future.
Thanks. Audrey, anything you want to add to that? You spoke to that a lot in what you shared with us previously. Anything to add?
Personally, I think that Dr. Wadsworth's stressing of those soft skills is what makes our program functional. I think without those things, we as students would have a really difficult time being here, because we are here because we care about these animals, but we try our best to remember, as much as we care about the animals, that's as much as we should care about each other, because we are also here to make sure that not only the farm is running, but it is running to like our standards and the way we want it, and that us and the ladies that we have here are really happy. And if we didn't cater to ourselves as much as we did to the animals, I don't think any of us would want to come here and want to stay. And I know for a fact that all of us love being here. So I think that's probably the main reason why.
I'll interject here that these students make this job easy. I'm just creating guardrails around the program and say, here are the rules of engagement, and they take it and run with it. So it's not hard with a group of amazing students to cultivate that kind of atmosphere.
Well, we wouldn't be here without you. So.
And some other gratitude from John Barlow in the chat box for the program, just noting that the soft skills component has been part of the program for 30 plus years of its existence, but he recognizes that it's really benefited recently from the focus you've been giving it, Steve. So thank you. Vern Grubinger asked, what's the mix of students in CREAM intending to farm versus go to vet school?
Okay. Personally, I know that a lot of people are interested in the program because it provides, not only a leg up, but an experience for vet school. With that being said, there are a good chunk of people on my cream team now who vet school is not even within their prospects that they are thinking about. They just love the farming and the husbandry aspect. And so the unique thing about cream is that it offers insight for both people. We get to not only cater to like the medical aspect of it, but because we are the only people running the place, or we are the team running the place, it gives opportunities for both sides, I guess.
Great. Steve, do you have a rough breakdown?
It's at least, I would say, maybe 60+% of pre-vet students. I don't have the actual data in front of me. We have a student that's wildlife biology major, wildlife management. We have a student that is horticulture. We've had food systems students in the past, so it is not just animal science, and we actually welcome students from diversity of backgrounds because they bring in a different perspective to the program, and are challenging for us with their questions and perspectives. It really enriches the experience for everybody.
Great. The chat box is lively, and I hope we can get to everybody's questions and do them justice. But thanks everybody for your engagement. Roy asks, what accounts for the high relative productivity of the cream farm? Steve noted that it was the highest producing farm in the state.
Let me correct that. It's not necessarily the highest producing farm in the state, but it is one of the highest producing farms in the state. I think a big portion of that is the genetic superiority of the herd, but I give a huge amount of credit to the herdsman, Matt Bodette, who is an incredible cowman and a superb farm manager. He's not the farm manager, but herd manager. He's responsible for the guiding the students in the daily care and management of the herd, and is very gifted, not only at the farm level, but with the students. And so I think he deserves a huge amount of the credit for the productivity of the herd.
Great.
Also, a big thing that affects production, specifically with our cream herd, that we've been talking about like in recent weeks in class, is the health of the cows themselves individually. For example, like udder health and mastitis. We do have them in our herd, which is inevitable in any herd, I think. But we, as students, as well as like Dr. Wadsworth and our advisors, make sure that we try to keep our cows healthy and their udders healthy as well, to ensure high production outside of just genetics, I guess.
Great. Lots of attention. Great. Hans Estrin has a question that he may want to take offline with you both, but he's an advisor for the farm training, UVM farmer training program, and they're currently pulling advisors together to help the program build health and resilience. Looking for suggestions on how to integrate those soft skills into the program. So any?
Yeah. So I'm more than happy to just follow up with a phone call later, just so we can hit some of these other questions, because we already talked about that a little bit. But if I have a quick thing to say, that's fine.
Okay, thanks, Hans. Then if we have time, we can come back to it for some discussion. Vern Groovinger, another question, maybe controversial and simplistic question. If having fewer cows and making high-value processed products seems like a promising path for the future dairy economic viability and water quality, why is so much money being invested in manure management instead of downsizing and milk processing / I think cheese making?
So, Vern, I think there are two parts to that. One is I couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, over the last couple of years, with VHCB, Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, DEC, and the Agency of Ag, I was asked to participate on that sort of soft skills and sort of financial wherewithal about farms who were faced with basically checkmate on a water quality issue on their farm. Nowhere to put the manure pit, nowhere to do anything there except for leave. and you would be amazed at how hard it was to get the money out to retire that farm from being basically regulated out of business. 2 farms in the state that we worked on, it was almost impossible. And they had to do it through a variety of programs. So I think they don't really want to make a sort of like a whole herd buyout thing for farmers who want to get out. But we would really rather spend Dairy Business Innovation Center dollars on value-added processing and have it done right so that those who do want to enter into it don't lose their money right off the bat, that they got a great chance of going forward with it and not just doing it because, hey, value-added is the way to go. Like anything else, you're going to wind up flooded with too many farms, going to overburden the system, and it's not going to be profitable for anybody in it. So I just think there are those 2 parts of understanding it for the context of working in that one program, and then seeing the way money is now being spent. But I don't think anybody is proposing $1 billion mozzarella plant for Vermont anytime soon. I wish they would, but don't see it.
All right.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks. I believe we're through the questions that were in the chat box. If I missed one, please feel free to unmute and come forward with it. New question for Tony. Because dairy is so important for Vermont agriculture, should UVM Extension invest more to the area?
That's another good question. Plug your ears, Roy. Yes, we should. I could probably think of 3 different dairy faculty that would really enhance what it is that we're doing here. No question in my mind. I think what's wound up happening is we've had some faculty assigned as PIs, and staff is doing a lot of one-on-one service work out in the field, which I understand that's good. That's what our role is supposed to be. And I know that when I kind of first got here back in the day, there was, Dennis and Glenn were doing all the agricultural business. And even before that, Stu Gibson was the dairy specialist. And then Colleen Leonard was a dairy specialist. And there were faculty on board. And now I don't really see a lot of that. And if there is a connection with CALS, maybe we were separated for a little bit too long, extension in CALS, to really fully understand that. So I don't see it on the extension side, and I really hope that we're going to get there, because I think coming down the road, it's going to be pretty important.
And if I could add 2 cents to that, I don't know if I should jump in. There's been some recent advocacy from the Farm Bureau as well as the Senate Committee on Agriculture. They have actually been communicating with UVM around these very same issues. I won't go into that any further. There are lots of things happening over the last 2 weeks in the background. From the advocacy and agitation side, not from our reaction to that yet. We're just beginning to get to that point. We'll see what happens.
Thanks, Roy. Did anybody have any other questions they wanted to share directly by unmuting?
I just threw up that one in the chat about that ARS program is, just sort of getting its feet under them, and there's definitely folks that are interested in dairy and studying dairy. And so, do you have any kind of areas, research questions, or even areas that you think are top priority? They might be able to jump on.
If it's the same one I think you're talking about, Hans, we talked about that a little bit this morning, Dan Baker and our group, and whether or not we were thinking about a little bit of a bigger effort, maybe an extension-wide effort where we would have if that's the same one. But if not, I'm not sure what you're talking about, so maybe someone else does and they can answer.
Yeah.
So maybe a more general question. What are the key research needs that would support Vermont dairy?
Thanks, Chris.
There you go. Well, I mentioned farm succession planning would be one. I know that it's not strictly dairy, but I think that's of high critical importance. We have folks that work in dairy and agronomy, and I wouldn't just label that as agronomy. I would certainly include Heather and when Jeff was here and that group as dairy specialists as well, just with the agronomy sort of focus. So we are strong in that area, but I think there's that sort of in the barn dairying that I just think is essential to have on board, somebody that can do nutrition research as well, and bring that in an outreach extension kind of a model that I know other extension organizations are doing, and it's good to interface with them. But I sure would love to have some people that we could work with here.
Thanks. Steve, Audrey, thoughts on research questions that would be helpful?
From my role as a veterinary practitioner, I would heartily agree with Tony. I've got a number of farms who are really in a crisis mode because of poor succession planning. As you said, Tony, multi-million-dollar operations that are on really fragile ground right now because of their really uncertain future. And Tony's group does a tremendous job in advising farms, but they can't be everywhere all the time. So I think that need particularly is one that I see. And combined with that, just the general financial management with the pressures for manure management systems and newer, updated facilities, there's lots of opportunity out there.
Great. John Barlow has his hand up. Go ahead, John.
Tony, another value-added thing that I wonder I'd like to get your impression on is grass milk, grass-fed milk, and that sort of niche, and where Vermont, is that a growing opportunity, or is the fluid milk market for that so limited anyway that it's just it is what it is right now and probably not going to grow much more because the co-ops aren't taking any more of that at this stage anyway?
Yeah, I think the co-ops are your best indicator of that. If they're not asking for more, then they obviously don't have a market, and not sure about the latent need. And I think if you looked, I think our group, the Northwest Crops and Soils team, has just put out a series of webinars that they're going to have, and I think one of them is directly related to cost of production on grass-based dairies. And so I think that information will come out that super expensive, not a huge market. And so, yeah, how do you want to look at these really micro niche sort of business opportunities? And how do you put that into context with extension research? I'm curious to know what others might think about that as well.
Well, one thing I think on it is the value of those operations in relative to other types of dairies in terms of ecological services and that sort of stuff, and what services they're providing to the environment compared to other dairies. Do large herbivores in grass-based systems really enhance diversity or not? That sort of thing. So I'll throw that out there as a research question that maybe Vermont is a laboratory for sort of understanding that a little bit better.
Great idea. Thanks, John. So we are at the end of our time together, but I am so grateful to everybody who made time to join today and really build this conversation into something I never would have imagined it could be. So thank you, first of all, Tony, and for the industry overview and insight. Steve, thanks so much for giving us an introduction to CREAM. Audrey, special thank you to you for joining us as a student. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm so grateful to your insight that you brought to this. Thank you. With that, we wish everybody a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for continuing to lead these things.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Roy.